Good morning. What I'll try to do today is give you a little bit of overview of what accounting tries to do in the sophomore courses, and then also what the major is like. I have a PowerPoint here, but what I'll do is just skip around a little bit, and then you'll have the PowerPoint available later. I know we're a little bit squeezed for time right now, so I will try not to make us any later. Before I start on accounting, though, I just want to mention that by choosing a major, you really decide what you're going to do for the first few years out of school. And eventually, you'll all be leaders. And so maybe you'll spend more time in accounting or analysis, but you may start out in accounting and you end up spending most of your career in marketing, just because of the choices you make on later jobs. And so that's why we try to provide a broad basis for you at the sophomore level, because you really don't know what you're going to end up doing with most of your career, and you need all of these skills maybe sooner than later in order to be successful in business. And so keep that in mind as I speak, and also as the other chairmen speak. Our mission is to educate a national student body, and that's important from a CPA standpoint because each state has its own licensing requirements. So we keep an eye on what's going on nationally. About 30% of our students go to Illinois, about 15% to New York, and then another 10% to California, and then after that they're all over. So we try to keep in mind what the education needs are for the entire country. But then we're looking also at a general education for anything you might do down the road, not just when you first get out of school. So we're thinking about analytical skills for going to law school, or analytical skills for going into an MS program. And then we look at general skills and then specific content expertise, accounting expertise. The general skills, again, I think that all the disciplines are going to look at this: communication, critical thinking. It's easy to think that accounting is just problem solving, but really it involves all of these skills in order to be successful. And again, depending on what you're doing, you end up needing some of these skills more than others. Ethics, professionalism, very important. As an accountant, you're almost always in a conflict of interest situation where you have to think about the welfare of the whole as opposed to your personal incentives. And if you can't stomach that kind of conflict of interest, you can't be an accountant, because that's just the nature of the beast most of the time. In accounting, we're looking at measurement, analysis, and validation. Most of what we're trying to measure is wealth and income. Okay, so you've seen those types of terms before in economics, but that's more theoretical. In accounting, we actually have to put some measurement around that and not have perfect certainty. Okay, and so our numbers are messier than what you see in econ. And sometimes people look at what we come up with and don't like it, but we're trying to balance reliability and then also with what we're trying to measure. Rankings, Carolyn mentioned our college ranking. In that same ranking, the accounting specialty was also ranked number 1, and then our undergraduate and MSA program are both been highly ranked for a long time. A couple things on what you would get out of an accounting major. The first part is business concepts, terminology, and skills. And if you had to describe quickly what accounting is, or the way I would describe it, it's a combination of a foreign language and algebra. Okay? Now you may not think about accounting that way, but it's not that difficult in terms of math. But there are so many nuances in the terminology, and sometimes you can use 3, 4, 5 different terms for the same economic concept. And that's difficult to get your arms around. And the more you are around financial statements, the more you're around accounting, the more you understand that language. So it's just like being in a foreign country. And then we also emphasize structured problem analysis. A couple other things, and usually you don't see exciting and accounting in the same sentence unless there's a not in there. But it actually is kind of an exciting time for accounting. There's a lot of changes going on because of the financial crisis. We realized there were some weaknesses in accounting and the disclosures. Also, there's a push to international accounting, and so that's causing our rules to change more quickly in the United States, and then also the international rules are changing. Now, some people may say, you hear them say, oh, you've got to be educated on international standards, that when you get out of school, everything's going to be international. Well, the bulk of international is the same as the U.S. rules, and a lot of the international are based on U.S. rules. So at the undergraduate level, there's almost no difference between the U.S. rules and the international rules. At the graduate level is where you would end up seeing more. Also, there's just so many new transactions. There's the sustainability reporting, there's sustainability issues that you saw in the film. All those things end up bringing accounting issues. And I'll skip the rest of the things. Career opportunities. You probably know people have gone into public accounting. That's where a lot of our people start, but they don't always end there. Most of them don't end there. They'll end up working for corporations. They may go into consulting. They may go to law school and then end up in law. They may end up in academics. And then these are some specific categories of where our graduates have gone, but note the variety, and then also notice that they're leadership positions. So what we're training you, the entire college experience, or the entire Mendoza experience, is to give you the knowledge that you need to be a leader. And that's also what you see with these examples. This is just specific information on our placement. About half of our students will go out to work after 4 years. The other half will go on to graduate school, either a law school or an MSA program. About a third of the students will typically come into our program, about our master's program. We have about 100 students in our master's program. About half of those are from Notre Dame and half are from other schools. This is the curriculum, and let me put this in context, and I'll come back to this in a second. You recognize what this is. It's an iPhone, right? It's easy to think in accounting that, you know, everything's a rule. And what's so hard about accounting for this iPhone? You know, you go to AT&T, you buy it, walk away with it, and it shows up on your or in my case, like when my daughter gets one, it's on my credit card, okay? So you charge it to your parents' credit card. What's the accounting issue there? And you say you just like scan it. You know, why do I need a degree from Notre Dame to be able to handle that type of accounting? Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. If you think about what you're doing when you buy an iPhone, you're also signing a contract, at least in the U.S., where you are agreeing to be an AT&T customer for 2 years. Okay, that little contract complicates what's income and what's wealth. Do we have an increase in wealth for AT&T? How do you measure that, given that some people may lose their phone or may quit AT&T sometime during that 2-year period? Now that's what ends up making accounting, at least to me, interesting, thinking about how do you come up with what the real wealth effect is, what's the income effect for that type of situation. Now that's what the measurement and disclosure courses get at. It's financial reporting. So how do you communicate to your stockholders what the change in wealth is from that type of transaction? Now the other courses get at maybe internal or another measure of wealth. So the managerial courses get at how many units do we plan to sell? How much are we making on each unit? What's the budget for next year? How much should we devote to those items? And then you compare that to actual results later on. So that's managerial accounting. That's the strategic cost management. And then we have another course, decision processes in accounting, that get at how do you formally structure uncertainty or handling risk and uncertainty. So you can use Excel and some other statistics and what we know from psychology to try to help us understand how those types of decisions are going to be made. And finally, the other wealth system or way of thinking about wealth is tax. So when AT&T sells the iPhone, they're also going to have to pay tax. So that's another stream of accounting that we will introduce you to at the undergraduate level. And then if you really like tax, then there's more for you at the graduate level. Now, the sophomore courses give you exposure to all of these issues. But then if you continue on to junior and senior year, you get more in-depth analysis of this. Okay? And then one last thing, and then I'll quit. Just to remind you that the Notre Dame undergrad or the Notre Dame accountancy degree is a 4-year degree. So it's 126 hours, just like the other majors. Many states require 150 hours. Most states require 150 hours to be licensed or to take the CPA exam. A lot of students get up to the 150 with AP credit or by taking overloads. And then some people still want to go on to the master's just because they want to understand how things fit together a little bit better, or because they need the hours that way. So like I said earlier, about half our students go out after 4 years, and the reason they can do that is they're close to 150 hours and they're ready to take the CPA exam even just with the 4-year degree. Okay, I'll stop there and turn it over to who's ever next.